Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Surya Pastricha and today we are going to talk to Jason Thomas, who is the co-founder of Bluesteak Media, which is a digital marketing agency based out of Kerala, India. Over the past several years, Jason has been helping entrepreneurs scale their businesses globally. In this video, we'll be uncovering Jason's entire journey from starting as a college student to eventually starting his own venture and how he created India's biggest meme page and earned millions out of it. We will also be talking about some crazy topics such as how you can market yourself through Instagram Reels, how you can build your online presence through LinkedIn, and marketing automation towards the end of this video. Jason has also been featured in the Economic Times and is also one of the recipients for the LinkedIn Top Voices for 2021. I promise you that you'll get to learn a lot from this video, and without any further ado, let's just hear out from Jason. Welcome to the podcast, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. It is really a pleasure hosting you today.
Thank you, Sia, so much. Thank you for the invite, and it's a pleasure to come and speak.
Perfect. Then let's just jump straight into the conversation and let's uncover your entire journey. So, Jason, can you tell us a bit about yourself and the work you do at Bluesteak Media so that our listeners can align themselves better with our conversation?
Absolutely. So my name is Jason Thomas, and I'm a 23-year-old entrepreneur, and I currently, focusing on my own business. I'm a co-founder of Bluesteak Media, which is one of the biggest in terms of number of people in the state of Kerala in digital marketing. So we are doing that, and we have worked with about 70 plus clients, including Red Cross, Muthoot, Dormakaba, and several other clients across four continents in the US, Australia, India, Europe, etc. And it's been 3 years into working in this agency, and that's what I'm currently doing there. And uh, I started this agency with my brother Telson and one of my partner Dixon. And right now we are 23 to 24 people. Uh, I have a lot of story behind that. I think we can explore that in the coming questions, I guess.
Definitely. I mean, that's really amazing. And also, I was reading about you and your company, Bluesteak Media, in the economic times, and what really intrigued me was the story behind your company and how you leverage moment marketing. Can you tell
Mhm.
a bit about that and how did Bluesteak essentially start?
So the starting of Bluestick, I have to go way back about 6 to 7 years when me and my brother actually were really interested in making memes. Actually, so we had this page called Dude. After about 3 to 4 failed attempts in creating a good meme page, we started a page called Dude, and after 2 years, we got about 4.4 million followers for that page, and that was one of the biggest meme pages in India. And we started earning a lot from that page by having some partnerships and having our own website and etc. We were earning like 2 lakh rupees per month. And at the year 2016 or 2017, we could see that Facebook's reach was going down, and all of a sudden, Facebook banned us one day, for violating some kind of policies. And we also had an app. We created an app called Dude App, which got about 50,000 downloads in the first month itself. And that also we couldn't handle that much of traffic coming to that app, so that also collapsed. And both the app and the page got collapsed, and we were working on it for about 3 to 4 years, and everything got lost. And then we thought that one of our friends said that, hey, we can do a workshop, a digital marketing workshop called Swipe Up, in which we tell businessmen and students on how they can also grow their business using digital marketing. And we did that Swipe Up. And from that workshop, one of the sponsors of the workshop actually said that they need a digital marketing agency for them. They were a decently big company. So we started, that was our first client. And that's how we thought that, hey, this could be a really good business model, trying to use our experience and helping other brands gain momentum on online marketing. and this were pre-Geo era, in which 1 GB cost like 350 rupees, and nobody really understood how the marketing online thing has actually worked. So we thought that this could be a really nice business model, and then we named our agency Bluestick, and after that it was like a really good journey for us. And the question that you asked were about moment marketing, right? So after about 1.5 years into the agency, we could sense that in the industry there was this some thing called moment marketing, really picking up. Before that, the content, most of the content people were putting out were evergreen content, or something that is related to the niche or anything of that sort. But I think there was an Instagram account called Fake Adco. So I think they started this trend called moment marketing. uh, what they did was that they created some kind of formats, some kind of meme formats that other brands can just pick up and throw in their USPs, or throw in their whatever that might be relevant to their brand or product, and mix it with that trend, and they could easily recreate that meme for them. And that another concept about moment marketing was that to mix something that is trending, that is already trending, right? um, that could be the topic that is trending in the internet, and pick that at, and create a meme and mix it with their brand and USP and put it out there. So these two things actually really worked on the internet, because it was really talking about the direct thing that was trending, right? Everybody wants to see something that is trending. Everybody wants to see the memes that were trending, right? So when brands adopted this strategy, it was like really nice. And then this was the thing that this just got, all of the agencies across India were trying to create some kind of formats or anything, and then we were also trying to do that. And finally, after a couple of failed attempts, we created a format called real permissions, in which we ask, the creative went like this, in which we there is an permission kind of thing. If you use Android or iOS, before after installing an app, you will get the app will ask permission to grant permission, right? We took that screen and we put it for Tinder. We put it for other brands, like I think um, a couple of brands. We took sample dummy brands and we put it for them. Do you want to be what do you say? Do you want to have a? I really forgot what we made, but we made about five kind of. We took five kind brands and remade that meme for them and put it on our Instagram account, and we called it hashtag real permissions. And after I think after a couple of hours, it just took out, and the famous Instagram account called Social Media Dissect and Social Samusha reshared that thing and said that, hey, there's this new trend going on. And then within seconds, I could see in the hashtag page, I could see a lot of brands writing that trend. And with one day, about 1 to 2 day, about 1,000 plus brands, including Amul, Comedy Central, Red Chilies, a lot of brands were diving into that. A lot of top brands in India, if you take any top brand, they were doing that trend. And then someone from Economic Times called me up and said that uh, we are featuring all those moment marketing thing that agencies did. And I think they picked about 2 to 3 or 4 moment marketing campaigns that went really well, and one of them was ours. And that's how we got traction in Economic Times, and that was one of our milestone achievements as an agency. So yeah, that's the story of that moment marketing campaign.
That's really inspiring. I mean, you started with a humble background, but then you hustled along the way and you established two firms. And essentially, after that, you established Blue Stick Media, which is really inspiring. And I mean, it must have been difficult and exhausting for you to, start a venture from scratch. Did you fear failure at the beginning, or was it a no pain or no gain kind of thought process for you?
Initially, frankly speaking, we didn't have that intention of that. I didn't see myself being an entrepreneur initially. I started this thing. We started this thing while I was in my uh, uh, +1 or +2 school time. So these meme pages and everything. So I thought that this is really something that I like. Trying to use the internet to make money. That's it. I didn't think that I would be, my career would be, you know, to be an internet entrepreneur or anything. I just wanted to do something and get some money out of it. That's it. But eventually, we realized that we got into the game. When we got that success with that meme page, and then we got into that app, then we that kicked in. We thought that, hey, this is it. We are getting this much money, 2 lakh rupees, about 2 lakh rupees per month, while I was like 19 years old or something of that sort. And then we thought that I we should hire some people to do our work. I hired a couple of my friends in my college, and that's when things really kicked in. That thing really, we got addicted to that. Learning something new, creating a system, and hiring people to do that. And we we trying to make the business better, instead of doing day-to-day tasks. So that was really the kick. And then we decided that, hey, we should definitely go into business. And then the one thing, one of my initial fail, when we were doing a lot of stuff. We tried to do build games. We tried to do animated YouTube videos. And whenever we failed, the initial failures was really disheartening. But then I thought that, hey, if we fail, it's a good thing. That it means that we experimented something new, and I surely learned a lot of out of it. Whenever we fail doing something really new, the second time I know that, hey, these are the things I shouldn't do. So then after that, whenever I fail, right, now also I fail every week. I fail about a lot of times, trying to pitch new ideas to my clients, or trying to pitch, even I'm trying to pitch some ideas to our colleagues. They'll reject that even. So every time I fail, and I say that, oh, this is a natural thing for entrepreneurship. The failure is just like a shadow for ours. It's always with us. And it's entrepreneurship is nothing without failures. You'd be, if you're doing the same thing every day, you might not fail. But if you're doing something new and experimental, you're going to fail. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really great because I also just started with the podcast like 1 month back and have, failed a lot. I was, not very confident to start the podcast because just because I was not confident in talking to people. But now I'm learning day by day and I'm trying to improve myself. And also, I believe that, stopping to learn is like stopping to live, and you must constantly learn something new, expand your skill sets, expand your knowledge, and just try to hustle along the way and just fail, because failure is what makes you perfect in the long run. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and also I would like to share a personal story over here. So basically, I also, started a venture right in college, but I failed, and that too miserably. But I mean, it was a bit of demotivating initially, but then I started looking at the positive side of things, and it gave me a lot of hope and a lot of learnings, which I'm sure would help me in the long run. And this is especially for our listeners as well, that a lot of times things won't work out for you, but you should not lose hope and just keep on trying. It is basically those efforts which would ultimately bear the fruit for you. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that was my story
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah. That your story was really on point. It's like there are a lot of people who are afraid to try. Right? There is this quote called, you miss 100% percentage of the shots that you don't take. Right? So you should take a lot of, especially when you're in college, right? That's the best place or time that you can take multiple shots. If I were in my college, if I had a chance to go back to my college times, I would, but double the risk that I'm taking right now. I would take a couple of shots. I'll always day in day out try something new. I always have something to fall back, right? After my, if everything fails, I can surely do good. Try to get a new job, a good job, and the society doesn't have that much. say in our things. They won't even know what we're trying to build, right, when we are in college. So it's like if you're doing BTech, it's like a 4 year window in which you can test out anything possibly. And I'd say that students have that golden time period, and they should be trying new things and failing. Even if you fail on doing 10 things in your college time, I think that will be the best 10 things that you would take out of your college time. Whenever you're going for an interview, if they see that you have done at least 10 things and you have failed in it, it means that you have exposed yourself to the real world, right? And the market has flashed you down. So that means you know what to do and what not to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the college is the best time to try because after you graduate from college, you would have a lot of responsibilities on your shoulders and you won't be able to, give your 100% to things. So, I mean, yeah, college is the best time to try, and one should certainly never stop trying on doing on doing different things in college. And I would also advise people to start something of their own. It could be a YouTube channel, it could be a podcast, it could be your own business, but at least try doing something new, because doing something new would make you learn, would make you always improve yourself. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also I recently heard that you became the LinkedIn Top Voices for 2021. So how do you feel about that? And does it put any sort of surmounting pressure on you to, consistently perform better?
um, I started using LinkedIn, I think 2 or 3 years back. I thought that I always had this intention to write down my thoughts somewhere. I used to have a blog, but I had, before that, 5 or 6 years back, I had a couple of blogs. I were writing a couple of blogs and sharing here and there, but I couldn't keep it going because I never had an audience. Writing blog, I'll write down all my thoughts, but that's just a web page. Nobody would be reading that, right? But always had this intention to write down something, and I had a lot of ideas I needed to share with other people. And then I don't want to do it on my Facebook or Instagram or anything of that sort, because in those platforms, people who follow me are my family and friends. They don't want to read my bullshit, right? They say, yeah, and the next day I go to my college, and they'll be ready with a couple of memes or trolls that they can use against me, right? I don't want to expose myself to that kind of thing. So then I stumbled upon LinkedIn, and I thought that, hey, this is a really nice platform. It's just like other platforms, they have a lot of audience, but it's not my friends and families, of course. And there are people who are interested to read my story, who wants to follow me, who wants to spread positivity, etc., etc. So I thought that, hey, I still remember, I was sitting in a restaurant, and I had one short idea to write down, and okay, I said to myself, hey, open LinkedIn. I just opened the LinkedIn and typed it down, and I could feel that anxious moment when the time before I just hit post, right? And after hitting post, I thought that, oh, that was so much, revealing, what you say, relaxing for me to take that idea from my head and put it there. And I got about two three likes for that. That's it. But that starting momentum, I then started writing weekly, bi-weekly. And about 1 or 2 years ago, I started to doing to increase the number of times of posting. And right now I kind of try to post daily. And then I could see that when I'm trying to share my experience of building a startup, there are a lot of people who want to read that. That would be a really resourceful for them. I got a lot of followers out of it, and I was just documenting my process. Right, I'm not trying to be a guru out there. I'm not trying to be a motivational guru or anything. I'm just frankly documenting whatever my thoughts are, whatever my learnings are, just documenting it there. And some of the posts really, a lot of people have messaged me that the things I put out there really has helped them. And my intention was that if I write a lot, it could never uh, put pull me down, right? If the more I write or the more I try to share my ideas, it could, the possibility is that either nobody is going to read that, or I'm going to gradually get an audience. But there is no possibility of me going down, or there is no possibility like that. So there's no risk involved, right? So my thinking was like, after 5 years time or 6 years time, I'm going to get something out of this. But it was sooner than, way sooner than that. It probably took about 2.5 years or something of that sort to, uh, majorly I got about 50% or 60% of the clients that I have in Bluestick Media, we got it from LinkedIn. So that is a higher achievement uh, in my perspective, because that has actually helped us, hire more people, give jobs for more people, you know gain the momentum for our digital marketing agency. And then obviously the LinkedIn job voice was really like, but I never worked for it, right? I actually didn't know that there was this thing called LinkedIn Top Voice. Actually, it happened. It was like a side effect kind of thing. I just wrote it, a lot of stuff, and these LinkedIn guys just pinged me and told that, hey, we have picked you. And that was a really thrilling moment. Then that's the time when people actually around me, my friends and family, actually came to know that I was, doing these things on LinkedIn and etc. So after that, there was no much of a pressure or anything. I always say that if I sometimes I am in no mood of writing a post or anything, I don't force myself or anything, but I try to go with the flow. At least some point of time in a day, I would like to write. That's the time that I will just note it down and post it there. So there's some pressure or anything of that sort. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is really an amazing way to look at it. I mean, there's nothing to lose kind of attitude is really important, because if you hold on to something, you will always be, worried about that. So it's, okay to experiment with things, and it is also important to, stay consistent on social media, especially LinkedIn, because I am also using LinkedIn since the past 2 to 3 years. But recently, I started writing on a weekly basis on LinkedIn. I basically write a lot about marketing, entrepreneurship, and all that stuff. And I started to gain a lot of followers, a lot of traction through LinkedIn, and it has really helped me networking with different people from all across the globe. And it's really amazing to talk to people, learning from them and hearing their point of views. So it has been really fruitful for me, and I believe it can be fruitful for a lot of people out there. I mean, some people are of the point of view that, LinkedIn is a scam, but if you actually use it carefully and use it perfectly well, then you would actually get a lot of value out of it. And it's really an amazing platform. Everyone should use it. I mean, essentially, also this pandemic has, caused the usage of LinkedIn to surge a lot. I mean, a lot of people have been looking out for remote jobs. A lot of people have been posting thoughtful content on LinkedIn. But it has also caused, social media has also caused distress to some extent, because, people are just scrolling their feed and, not focusing on building real relationships. So what's your take on that? And what do you think is more important, building relationships on a social media platform, or is it better to is it better to build relationships outside the social media platform as well?
Scrolling indefinitely on social media. So that's actually a real huge problem that we are facing. Our generation is facing. If you look at the screen time of most of our people, I just ran recently. I ran a poll on LinkedIn asking people to just vote about their screen time per day, and the results are really shocking. About 60, more than 60% of the people actually spend more than 6 hours per day looking at their phones. And I've even got people telling me that they are using it for more than 15 hours per day. I'm not kidding, really. So if you sleep about 8 hours a day, that is like about 16 hours of awake time. Like out of that 16 hours, some people tell me that they are using they're looking at their mobiles for more than 12 to 15 hours. I'm not sure how they're doing that, but yeah, that's the reality of the situation, right? So I try to minimize it as much as possible, even though this one of my a lot of my business actually runs on my phone, but I try to bring it down below 6 hours or 5 hours. So just so that I remain sane, right? I don't want to just go. If you open like the problem is that if I want to do something else and I took my phone for something else, but suddenly some kind of notification pops up. I click on that. I go to Instagram and somebody like my picture. Okay, that's good. And then I click on that Reels button. I go to Reels. Then it's what you say, pitfall, right? And I just keep on scrolling reels, and within no time, it's like about 45 minutes have passed, and I totally forget why I actually took my phone, right? So these things are there, and then the second thing is that on these platforms, right? Yes, even on LinkedIn there is this thing called, when you look into yeah, when you scroll through LinkedIn, you'll most of the time you'll be seeing that others have achieved this, others have achieved that, they have done this. On Instagram too, they some of our friends are going for the trip, they are having that, they bought this, they are having a good bike, they were relaxing when you were having a lot of stress. But that's like one out of uh, that is just one day out of 365 days in a year. Maybe that's the best day that they had in that year. They are just capturing that moment and putting it on Instagram. Just like that, you would also have one of the best days in that year. But when you see that, when you have about 400 friends, every day one of your friends is going to have the best day of their year, right? And they are sharing it on their Instagram stories and feed. And you will see that everyone else, literally everyone is enjoying their life and having the time of the life, but I am having all these problems, all these negativities, all this anxiety. uh, my life is basically shit. So but everybody has that too. They're not doing that on Instagram, they're not sharing that on Instagram, right? Just like that, so you don't need to compare yourself, looking at the social media profiles, right? That is there. And third is that the danger of like going the other extreme. I don't want to use Instagram at all, I don't want to use LinkedIn at all. Obviously that's a choice of the person, but the problem is that, especially, people say that, this COVID thing actually have put the world have pushed the world at least 5 years ahead of the time. Everybody is actually interested in technology, everybody use, even 50 or 60-year-old teachers are using Zoom to take classes. 50-year-old people are actually ordering online, using Zomato, using all those apps. And just I think COVID just uh, COVID has been the best catalyst for change, for the better in terms of technology. There are a lot of tragedy that has happened to that in the other side, and that's really bad. I wouldn't replace that with the push that we got, because a lot of people have lost their relatives and loved ones. That's always there. But if you're not learning about these platforms or technologies, you are becoming, what you say, irrelevant for the times. If you don't know how does LinkedIn work, or what is Clubhouse, or what is what you say, anything that is coming new, you are becoming irrelevant, right? That's how today's society literally communicate with each other, right? It's not, and everything is broken down. And so if you're using it for the better, right? If you're using it to as you said, if you're using it to really have a connection with each other, if you're scrolling through LinkedIn and you see that someone actually has put up a really beautiful content, you just click on that profile and just message them, hey, I really love this content, and I just want to discuss with you and can we have a call or something of that sort. And just getting on a call and picking their brains, having making friends with them, and possibly building a business out of it. So that's how I look. uh, uh, that's the perspective that I take, actually. Whenever I'm scrolling through LinkedIn, whenever I read a content that's really nice, or read anything that is really nice, I try to uh, you know uh, build a relationship with them. Eventually, a lot of those kind of relationship has been we have met each other in the real world. We have talked with each other, and we already also have made business exchanges with each other. So obviously use it for to make connections rather than to just for blind consumption, right? A lot of people are doing that. They are just consuming a lot of stuff, reading all these things, reading just consumption, 100% consumption. They are not producing anything. They are not building relationships. That's not the way to do.
So what I can understand, it can be absolutely fatal for a business as well as an individual if you are not using social media, especially LinkedIn in these times, especially LinkedIn and Instagram. So yeah, I mean, it's really important to manage your time effectively as well, because if you are just scrolling your feed the entire day, you won't get any value and you won't be posting stuff. So how would you actually build those relationships with your customers, your peer network, or maybe your professors? So yeah, that's really a very important point. And also Instagram Reels has exploded and grown like anything. So, what do you think about creative marketing, especially both in the B2B segment as well as the B2C segment, using such platforms?
Yeah, we have already by the start of this year, right? We have already started using Reels for our. I think at least 3 or 4 of our clients are using Reels, and we have recommended to do that, and we are creating content for the same. So it was like now after 3 months only we are getting a clarity about what exactly is Reels, what will work on Reels, what's the nature of Instagram Reels algorithm, etc., etc. So it's a really beautiful thing that happened to Instagram. They just copied it from TikTok, obviously, but it 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 the thing is that it is a huge boost for small businesses, because if for the static posts other than Reels, right? Like some the previous years Instagram. If I'm a small business, I post something really beautiful. It only reaches, if I only have 100 people following me. It only reaches that 100 people. That's it. No one else. It's the chance of it getting attention of other people who are not following me. It's very minute. Either it's going to be I got to have a really nice hashtag strategy, or Instagram should pick that up and put it on the explore page, or people should just those people should just reshare it to their stories. That's the only way that I could get that small business could get more reach, right? But Instagram Reels opened it up like nothing else. If I post a really nice reel, it is definitely going to reach at least 1,000 people, even if I only have 100 followers or 200 followers. If it's really nice, right, it will surely reach about 500, more than 500 people, 1,000 people, or that's all. So I think for me, that's the most crucial part. That it gives businesses or creators that opportunity to reach more people, or go to more people's feed that are not following you. So that and also Instagram is also, I think, prioritizing Reels over other posts, static posts. So still people are about, I think, 70 more than 70% of the businesses or creators are also shying away from bringing in Reels, because there is a video element to that, and many people are not comfortable with video. But you can always be creative around that, how to crack that. You can talk with other freelancers who are creating Reels for them, or even you can hire a video editor who can just create animated Reels, or Reels with just pictures or anything of that sort. But I think it's like what you say, if you're having an Instagram strategy, you cannot, from now onwards, you cannot avoid the Reels. That's just the game right now.
That's really interesting. And yeah, that's really interesting to know. And how are you basically managing your team right now? Because everything has shifted to a remote working culture. And how did you used to manage your team earlier as compared to you managing it now? So
Yeah.
what are the different challenges which you are essentially facing?
Yep. So it's been about, I think, more than 1 year. I think it's been about 1.2 years that we have started working from home. Before that, we have had an office, and everyone, everybody would come from a lot of different places to that office, and you used to work together, right? That's a very different thing, and it's a thing of the past right now. It's been about, we haven't, after that, we have hired a lot of people we haven't even met uh, in face to face yet. So it's the things have changed dramatically. I don't think we are going back to that situation in soon. Back to like 100% office things. I think that's not here in the foreseeable future. So how things have changed is that the advantage of working from home is that you save a lot of time in commute, right? There were people who were traveling about 1.5 hours or 2 hours to reach our office every day, and that's like 4 hours lost in commute, right? The energy, the money, and a lot of things are lost there. So working from home, you get that 4 hours benefit, right? That is there, and you have that flexibility. In our office, there are a lot of things, right? Coming to the office on time, having lunch at that time, a lot of things are there. But if you're working from home, if you have an emergency suddenly, or if you are not feeling well, you can just take a break and postpone it to some other time. Or a lot of flexibility is there for when you're working from home. But the other side of the coin is that when you're working from home, creativity, you're locked in your home, you're not going out. Your creative brain could take a hit. You could, if you're an extrovert, that's the worst thing that you can have. If you're sitting home all the day, your brains would be like popping with anxiety and anger, and that's not the best situation that you want to be in. And also, just like vice versa, when you're working from home, your boss always expects you to be on in home, so that there is no proper 9 to 5 working hours. That means that you'll get more, you'll be asked to do more stuff, and that could be really a burden for people who are working from home, right? There could be, and also in between, we have our family demanding things from us. We have our boss demanding things from us. So it could be a really uh, high level task to balance all these things. And in my opinion, it should be flexible. In the future, it should be flexible. Some people find it really comfortable working from home, and they would only recommend, they would come about 1 to 2 days a week to the office to chit chat and everything. And there are other people who really want to get out of their home and always be present in office. So I think in the future, companies will be having a flexible kind of thing. If I want to to work from home, I can take that. If I want to go office, I can do that. So I think that's the future that we can see. But one huge thing that advantage that we saw is that, you know previous to this COVID thing, we had to commute to the client's office every time we had a discussion or a pitch. That could be about 4 hours drive or 5 hours drive or anything of that sort. We would lost literally we will lose literally a day commuting there and meeting. Right now it's just 30 minutes Zoom call. That's it. We are not losing anything. So that's a huge thing. We can actually schedule about 4 to 5 client meetings in a day, and even after that we'll have time. But before that, if we needed to meet one client, we would lose one entire day. So, and also, um, we are based out of a district or a city called Kottayam, which is not well known. So before COVID, whenever people wanted to visit us, or when we wanted to visit them, they would always ask about why we don't have a place in Kochi or any other metro cities, or Bangalore or Chennai. So right now that notion has, I think, pretty much changed. They don't care about where your office is right now. We can literally be in a village or a remote area, and still they are open to business. Yeah.
I mean, work from home saves a lot of businesses times, lot of times for the individuals as well. But it is also important to maintain your sanity, because you can't go while working. Because if
Yeah.
you go mad while working, you won't be able to. You would actually slide into a depression, and you won't be able to effectively. And it also hampers creativity to a certain extent. So yeah, I mean, maintaining a balance and finding the right balance in life, in every aspect of your life, is really important. So yeah, that's really interesting. And
Now coming to the scope of AI in marketing, what do you think is the scope of AI in marketing, and how would marketing automation flourish in the generations to come?
Yeah. This was a really interesting topic that I wanted to learn, and I think last year I signed up for a course from IAM Calcutta, in which the course was about AI powered marketing. So the course was really insightful. It was a 6 month long course. I gained a lot of insight. Before that, I thought that I would never be able to understand actually what machine learning means, right? Even though I have a computer science degree, it was really hard for me to digest what really machine learning means or AI means. But the professors there were really nice, and and I was able to pick up. I can now speak in the language of a machine learning expert or anything of that sort. So then I understood that, I think that in a foreseeable future, or after a couple of years, just like how companies right now, every company has a social media agency or a social media strategy or a digital strategy, right? Just like that, after a couple of 5 or 6 at least years, every company, just like how they're doing social media right now, they will also have a machine learning strategy. Every company, most of the companies, like those who have the ambition, they will have a machine learning strategy in which they think about how to use machine learning for their marketing, how to use machine learning in HR, how to use machine learning in finance, in every sort of sphere, especially on marketing, which is relevant for us. Um, Already we are, knowingly or unknowingly, we are using machine learning every day in our life. Whenever we are using Facebook, or whenever we are running Facebook ads, that's a really nice example of machine learning. Whenever we are trying to find a really nice song on Spotify, that's a really good example of recommendation in AI or machine learning. But just like that, there are hundreds of examples of machine learning. But I think what marketers need to do is that they really need to understand what ML is. That what I see is that a lot of people actually think that they know what ML is, but they don't even know 5% of what it really is. They think that, hey, I know that there's a lot of data, you need to process that data, and then you need to make an algorithm, then that's it. So it's like, oh, first of all, they have to admit that they don't know AI or ML, and then they need to explore really what it is. So it's not like just one switch and I become an ML engineer or ML expert. It takes time. Even though if I learned ML, I need to now. What I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to pick up projects so that I can have hands-on experience. Also, I'm trying to learn more, read more about ML, so that I stay relevant even after 5 years. My agency should stay relevant after 5 years. So yeah.
Yeah, since we are talking about AI and machine learning now, sometimes people don't really understand that there are two types of AI. So the first one is the artificial narrow intelligence, and the other one is the artificial general intelligence. So what artificial narrow intelligence is basically, it's basically a computer's ability to perform a single task extremely well, such as if you look at Siri, or maybe you look at Google Assistant, it really assists you superbly well. But artificial general intelligence is basically mimicking human behavior really well. And artificial general intelligence can, perform any intellectual task that a human could. So it's really important to understand the distinction between those two. And a artificial general intelligence, as of now, is very narrow, and it has not been developed to that extent as artificial narrow intelligence has been developed. So, I mean, it's really important for tech enthusiasts to know this, and so that
That's
they can flourish in whichever domain they go after a couple of years. So, yeah, that's one a disclaimer I wanted to put right here, and
yeah. Cool.
and also, what is that one advice which you would like to give startups, individuals like myself, and business owners when it comes to building your social media presence? And is there any mantra for succeeding digitally?
The mantra for succeeding digitally is, I think, one of the huge pillar is consistency. Um, so you just got to show up every day. That's it. That's one huge thing. You have to. make it a habit. So for example, how I take a look at it is that, hey, I just need to, what if I am starting a YouTube channel, right? What I do is that uh, I'll have a long term vision. After 3 or 5 years, what I should be, I need to be an expert in this space. I need this much people thinking that I'm a thought leader in this space, right? That's the goal that I have. Then what I do is that I'll have monthly goals. I need to have this much subscribers. I also do it right now. At the start of every month, I have a Notion doc in which I have about 6 monthly goals, in which I say that, hey, in Twitter I need to reach this much followers. In LinkedIn I need to reach this much followers. And that's not a huge followership or anything. In Twitter I'll be thinking about gaining at least 100 followers. That's it. So you don't need to have ambitious short-term goals, but you need to have ambitious long-term goals. So that my psychology is that, if you have small goals in a short-term period, it's like for the past 12 months, I achieved all my short goals. These kind of short-term goals, right? So whenever I uh, accomplish that, I have more motivation to go ahead with more kind of challenges, right? But if the whole goal is like really huge, I would never, in no month I'll never reach that goal, right? So that's like always, like after a couple of months I'll quit trying, right? So that is my mantra, having short goals for short term. And then also after that, what I do is that I may make it a daily habit. I have a lot of daily habits, like meditating, reading books, exercising, writing on LinkedIn or Twitter. So I'd add that, if I want to make YouTube a thing, I'd design my day and my week for that. For example, if I'm starting YouTube, I'll be saying that every Wednesday at 9 p.m. I should be writing the script for my next video, and Thursday 9 p.m. I'll be recording that video, and Friday maybe I'll be doing my post production, editing and SEO and everything, and I'll be uploading it on Friday. So I have a strict, very clear, tangible actionables, right? So these 3 days 9 p.m. I'll be doing this thing. So just like that, I need to decide my week or my day for that, and then I'll have a weekly review about how did I achieve my goal or anything of that sort. So these things, and you need to have a long goal, but then you need to break it down to monthly or actionables, monthly actionables, weekly actionables, and daily set of habits. So that's like, you don't need to always look at that long term goal. You just need to look at, if I'm did I overperform my previous month. I'm not comparing myself with any other channels or anything of that sort. I'm just looking at my own record. I'm myself is my biggest competitor, right? If I'm outperforming myself, definitely that means my graph is up, right? So I just need to keep that graph up. That's it. So yeah, I'm talking about this design part of it and the consistency part of it. With that, and one more thing, incredibly important thing is that the growth mindset. Some people I have seen that they started LinkedIn with me, or they started Twitter with me, but still they only get about 1 to 2 likes. It's been about 2 years. So it's really hard, to understand why these people, they have consistency with them. They every day or every week they show up. Still, they only get 2 or 3 likes. What I see is that they don't have a really good growth strategy. They still only have 1,000 connections. They still only have 50 followers. They are just focusing on their content part or consistency part, but in reality, you need to focus on the growth aspect also. You need to have a goal about every month. Just like how I say that I'll post 30 pieces of content, I need to have 100 new followers. Somehow you need to hack that. For example, in Twitter, you could be following uh, similar kind of what you could find other profiles that are active and follow them. If they are in your field, some of them might follow back, or anything of that sort. You need to have some kind of growth hack, so that you make sure that you are expanding your audience, right? So that's also needed.
So it's basically about staying consistent and devising smart goals, which basically means to devise specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound goals, so that you are always on the track to posting new and fresh content every day or every week or every month. So yeah, that's really valuable for people like myself who have just started, their LinkedIn journey, their podcasting journey, their YouTube journey. So thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and experience with us. And unfortunately, this brings us to the end of this podcast. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners would have learned a lot from today's episode. Thank you once again, and best of luck for the future as well.
Thank you, Surya. Wonderful. It has been a wonderful experience, talking with you in this podcast, and wish you the best. Yeah, thanks once again.
Thank you so much.